This is Tesla on the 5-minute time frame. I'm going to show you price targets for Wednesday. We ended the day at $216.52, up more than 2%. The 52-week low, 101.81. The 52-week high, $299.29. Taking a look at the performance for the week, we are down more than 13%. Year to date, we are up 82%. Now, the 1-year price target is $239.45, which represents a 10% increase from where we are. That has been revised downward on TradingView. Now, this is where we ended. To the north side from where we are takes us to resistance and a possible take profit area, 221. Above that at 3 standard deviations, 224.35. And at 4 standard deviations and another level of resistance, 227.77. If we start to fall down after hitting resistance, this will turn into support and possibly grind along the line. And then going down again would take us back to 2 standard deviations, and then that would turn into support. I want to show you the gap that is still in play to the north side. I talked about this previously, and this started out at 230.80, and it began on the 19th, and it closes out at 242.69. This is now the 1-year price target, but if we close out this gap, that would close out this. And previously, this was the 1-year price target when I looked at it on October 15th. So it has been revised downward. And speaking of downward, back to the middle of the trend takes us to the baseline there at 214.23. From where we are, this would turn into support. So if we hit this line, I will anticipate a little bit of a bounce. To the south side from where the middle of the line is at -2 standard deviations takes us to 207.52 roughly. And -3 standard deviations, 204.26. And at -4 standard deviations, $200.82. If we start to head up after hitting support, this line would then turn into resistance, and then this line also would turn into resistance. This gap closed out at 208.29, and we closed that out on Monday. I had talked about that previously. This gap to the south side is still in play, closes out at roughly 193.42. And ignore that horizontal line down there. That's my previous support and resistance lines that I like to mark out for myself. And it clogs up my chart, but I will eventually delete it. This gap has closed out. Let me extend this. It closed to the upside at roughly 220.01. So I will delete this now and just move this over to this line. All right. And Murat, in his technical analysis thought that we could go from about 220 to 218. That has come to fruition. So that is done with here. And this gap has also closed out to the south side, roughly at 216.30. The RSI on the 5-minute time frame is turning up. On the daily, we are just getting past 30, the oversold zone, so I do anticipate this to go up as people buy the dip. On the weekly, we're also turning up at 45, and on the monthly, where I like to troll for longer term investments, price is going down, not price, excuse me, the RSI is going down still at 48. Remove that line. And very quickly, I want to take a look at the triple Qs. On the monthly, we are just slightly turning up at 57. On the weekly, the RSI is going up. Plenty of room before we hit overbought. And on the daily, plenty of room also to the upside. Let's take this to the 5-minute time frame. The RSI is going up. We ended the day at 359.13, up nearly 1%. For the month, we are down just a little bit, but for the year to date, we are up 33%. We are right here, and 2 standard deviations takes us to roughly 360.91, 363.34, and 365.77. To the south side, back at the middle of the trend and the base, 356.03, 351.20, 348.72, and 346.32. Support, support, support. Resistance, resistance, resistance. Take profit area, another take profit area, and another take profit area. And this is a buy, buy, buy zone for me. And this gap closed out here to the downside, and that was at 356.01. From up here, going to this baseline and near this area, this turns into support, and look what happened. A bounce here, and even the bot said it was a buy at resistance. And a clear buy here at, this is a buy at support. This, when it's up here, falls down, this line turns into support. This is support and a clear bounce, and another bounce here, and a clear sell signal along this line. And this gap is still in play that I talked about earlier, and it developed on, what was that, the 18th, Wednesday the 18th. I will now extend this. So when the gap forms to the upside, it then creates that gap to the downside. It's hard to see here. All right, it ran down, so it's going to go up and close to the upside. But this will probably take, if we're still going to the upside, another couple of days, I would think, to close it out. And oh, look at this. I pulled out here, made this a little bit larger, and there's another gap right here that I marked out. So if you want to see the big picture, it's best to flip it over to, let's say, the 1 hour. And that will give you different buy and sell signals. On the 1 hour, we are at the middle of the trend and the baseline. To the north side takes us to 372. So that gap would automatically fill out. And at -2 standard deviations, that would take us to 346.92. And again, the RSI around 50. That does it for me. If there is a stock or an ETF that you would like me to go over, please let me know.